Four little men who caused a car crash, and two little men who were angry at being seen. Reports of brownies, gringotts, puckers, and strange little men. I received a witness report on Facebook from a wonderful lady in Ireland who said, "My auntie almost caused a car crash when she was 14. Around about 1969. She was living in the Bushmills area of Northern Ireland with her family. Now, she blamed the crash and the events on the four little men that were in the road. Her name was Una Don, and her mother's name was Margaret Don, and her mother was driving the car. They were out on a country road in the dim early morning, and Una screamed, 'Look out!' and her mum veered and almost flipped the car, and she was told off quite sternly. Una was sobbing at being scolded. She'd been blamed for almost wrecking the car, but she was adamant at what she saw in the road, and she asked, 'Didn't you see them?' Auntie Una said 4 little men were crossing the road in single file with the robes or blankets around them. She described them as being about 3 feet tall. Now, this might sound like a tall tale, but in all her years she always told it the same way. In her 20s, she became very religious. She was a John Wimber evangelist, and she married a member of that outreach and stayed ultra-religious her entire life. She was extremely humble and grounded. She had no mental health issues. She had a strict moral character, and she'd never lie. So when she said she saw these people, I believe her. She said she couldn't explain it. It was just what happened that day. And my granny, her mother, didn't see a thing. Both of them have passed on only a few years ago now. But the story can't go into obscurity. So with my permission, it's okay to share this, Deborah. Now, as many as you know, Ireland and Ayr have a rich history of little folk. Many people to this day make reports of little folk. Horses' manes are plaited and milk stolen from pails. Farmers talk of missing blankets and tools that turn up again weeks or months later, clean and sharp and better than before. It's said if you leave bread or milk and honey, the little folk will help look after your land and your animals. Planting holly is also said to ward off the negative energy of the wee folk. Now, whilst researching the report at Bushmills, I came across some coincidental information, and I'm not one to believe in coincidences. In the old legends, Una, who you'll remember was the lady in the first report, was known as Queen of the Fairies. She was known to have long golden hair, which reached to the ground, and she was also the wife of Fionn MacCool. Maybe her bloodline is still alive and well and living amongst us. It's also said if you happen upon a fairy funeral, it's probably not a good idea to stick around. A book written in 1878, known as Goblin Tales of Lancashire, tells the story of 2 men who stumble upon a boggart funeral. One of the men, Robin, sees his own image in the coffin and dies just a month later. Now, you should never name any of the wee folk or give them a gift, as the old law states you must be humble and polite unless you do either of these acts. You must never eat or drink with them either. 2 little men, angry at being seen, was a report that came in through YouTube. And Lancashire's little folk are often known as brownies. And this is an encounter from a young man who's reporting on behalf of his father. My dad was walking in the woods in Lancashire, and he said it was really quiet and eerie. And just at that moment, he came upon 2 strange-looking men who were talking face to face. He said they were very small, about 4 feet tall, and they were wearing weird brown clothes he'd never seen before. And what shocked him was they both spun round really quick with a shocked look on their face, and they both then looked at each other in shock and looked back at my dad in a really nasty way. They seemed to be angry because he'd seen them, and at that moment my dad felt scared, so he turned back and he walked away very quickly, and he's never seen them since. A very recent report that came in on the 1st of January 2018 is of some little golden-haired men in the Errington Woods area. Deborah, I came across your website while searching for some help. I want to report something I saw on New Year's Day this year while I was walking my dog. I know you usually take reports of Bigfoots and Yetis, but I don't know how else to explain the things that I saw or who to go to report it. I guess you could call them Littlefoots, because I saw something in the woods that wasn't large, but they were short, and they were two small and hairy human-type figures. I regularly take my dog walking in some woods near the village of Newmark, and these woods are called Errington Woods. On New Year's Day, I was on my usual walk with the dogs when I heard some chattering noises. It sounded like two men muttering, and it sounded to me almost ape-like. I looked into the trees where the direction of the sounds were coming from, and I came across these two creatures, both stood near a felled tree. They were about 3 feet tall and covered in tawny brown-coloured hair. They were both males. I saw anatomy on one of them. They looked like small primitive humans, and one was wearing what I can only assume was a loincloth. They each had a mane of hair down their necks. They were very muscular, and I got the impression that they were not children or young. They were fully grown. They were just two little men covered in golden tawny hair. They stared at me for a few seconds, and I got my mobile out. My black lab then started barking at them. And as I was holding the camera, they shot off into the bushes, and I had no chance to take a picture. They soon disappeared, and I lost sight of them. That's my story, and that's what's happened. Thank you for your time, Deborah. I also got another report, a very strange-looking thing that he likened to the Gringotts from Harry Potter. He said, I visit the woods often and I like to feed the deer. I'm often in one area and I've had some strange experiences there. 2 years ago in autumn or early winter, I was there one Sunday morning. I was looking through my binos, and around 180, 200 yards away, I got a sideways look at something that was a pale ivory colour, and I couldn't put a name to it. It looked like the things that look after the bank in Harry Potter. It was a strange little pale man. I watched it for a while, and I would say probably around 20 minutes plus. It moved very little in that amount of time, but it kept the same sideways angle more or less the entire time I was looking at it. I could just make out the head, and that's all I could see from my position. It was possibly 18 inches high. It had a long nose, pointed back ears, and it was all one colour. A man dressed in green. This is also a report that came to me through YouTube, and a gentleman got in touch with me at my email, debbiehatswell@gmail.com. Deb, I would like to report a strange experience that happened some time ago now. I've never forgotten this incident, and I'm happy for you to share it. I was with a few friends many years ago, and we were driving around North Wales. It was about 5 a.m, and we were driving on the country lanes. And right in front of us, a small man, who stood about 3 feet tall, appeared from the bush at the side of the road. He was not naked or hairy, and he was wearing all green, and he had a green hat on his head. In his hand, he was carrying a small musical instrument. It was a harp. He just appeared at the side of the road out of the dense bushes that surrounded an open field. As we drove past, we slowed down to look at him, and he just casually crossed the road as we drove by and then disappeared into the bushes on the other side of the road. Both were hedges surrounding empty fields. We were miles from anywhere, halfway up a very large, steep, hilly area. I still wonder to this day if we witnessed an actual gnome. If I had to describe him, I would say he was basically wearing like a Robin Hood type of suit, or what Peter Pan would wear. Pointed hat, and he had a harp, but it was tiny and small, like it was made exactly for his size. Now, we only seen him for about 30 seconds, but we all saw him. I mean, it could have been a really small person, dressed as a gnome at 5 a.m. in the middle of nowhere for harp practice. But any normal explanation seems just as far-fetched as the crazy explanation of we actually saw a gnome. Now, there are several kinds of little folk known by many differing names. Some are helpful and positive. Others are tricksters and thieves. Some are very negative and will steal your shadow or your energy. In fact, some would steal your eyeballs and come back for the sockets. Their names may change with the centuries, but they're the same creatures as old. Old as time, whose presence here in the UK is passed on by mouth, through tales told around a fire, up to and including our modern day blogs and websites. For thousands of years, these mysterious folk have been here on this isle. The Picts themselves are said to have been descended from them. But would it surprise you to know they're not always seen as little? Some were called brownies, boggarts, bull beggars, imps and nexes. Some were as small as a flower or elfin in appearance, and some were said to be tall and dark and hairy, pardon me, or tall, fair and hairy. There are also little hairy folk, some dressed in brown, some dressed in green, others wearing skins. Others wore no clothes at all, other than their hairy bodies. We have lots of different names for them, and some are described as almost pan-like the pucker is described as a tall, hunched and dark creature in its appearance. Said to resemble Pan, it's also referred to as a tree spirit or an elemental. No matter where you are in the world, wherever your feet walk, you will be walking in an area with a tale about little folk or the Fae, without even realising it. These stories were told by our forefathers and carried on the mouths of the storytellers the world over. You probably have a story like this in your own family, and if you do, we would love to hear it.